Hello learners, I'm Dr. Arunima Bora, Assistant Professor in the Discipline of Education, Krishnakanta Hendik State Open University. And our discussion will be from Unit 7 and the title of the discussion is NEP 2020 An Inclusive Classroom. Already in the previous discussion, we have talked about the inclusivity, inclusive education, inclusive classroom, the role of teachers, role of parents and community for building a healthy, inclusive system. What are the challenges and policy and everything. Now, in this discussion, we will focus our views on the new education policy, National Education Policy 2020 and inclusive classroom. Education is the foundation of an equitable and progressive society. In a diverse and democratic country like India, the goal of education extends beyond academic achievement. It must ensure equality, social justice, and holistic human development. The National Education Policy NEP 2020 introduced by the Government of India mark a transformative shift in the Indian education system. It emphasizes inclusive and equitable quality education for all, in alignment with the Sustainable Development Goal 4 SDG 4 of the United Nations. The concept of the inclusive classroom lies at the heart of the NEP 2020. The policy envisions an education system where every child, irrespective of gender, caste, socioeconomic status, linguistic background, or disability, has equal opportunities to learn, participate, and succeed. Understanding the relationship between NEP 2020 and inclusive classrooms is essential for realizing the vision of an equitable, empathetic, and enlightened nations. Meaning of inclusive education already we have discussed. Still, I am again want to put that inclusive education refers to an approach where all learners with and without disabilities learn together in the same environment with proper support and accommodations. It is based on the belief that every child has unique abilities and learning needs, and that diversity enhances the learning experience for all. UNESCO defines inclusive education as a process of addressing and responding to the diversity of needs of all learners through increasing participation in learning, cultures, and communities, and reducing exclusion within the and from education. Thus, inclusion is not limited to children with disabilities. It includes all learners who may be marginalized or excluded due to economic, social, cultural, linguistic, or other barriers. An inclusive classroom, therefore, is a learning space that values diversity, ensures accessibility, adapts pedagogy to individual needs, and nurtures empathy, collaboration, and respect among learners. Overview of the National Education Policy 2020. The National Education Policy 2020 was approved by the Union Cabinet of India on 29 July 2020, replacing the previous National Policy on Education 1986. NEP 2020 aims to reform the entire educational structure to make it holistic, flexible, multidisciplinary, and inclusive. Its vision is to develop an education system that contributes to transforming India into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high-quality education to all. The policy is guided by the principles of equity, inclusion, access, quality, and accountability. Some of its major highlights include universal access to education at all levels, early childhood care and education for all children, 5+3+3+4 curricular structure instead of 10+2, focus on foundational literacy and numeracy, flexible and multidisciplinary higher education system, integration of vocational education, emphasis on teacher training and continuous professional development, use of technology and digital learning, promotion of Indian languages and culture, ensuring inclusion and equity in all educational institutions. Philosophy of inclusions in NEP 2020, which is very essential to be discussed here. NEP 2020 emphasizes that education is a fundamental right of every child, that the system must ensure equal opportunity for all learners regardless of background. Its inclusive philosophy rests on the following principles. What are the principles? First of all, equity and social justice. NEP 2020 recognizes that certain groups such as girls, socioeconomically disadvantaged groups, and children with disabilities face barriers to education. The policy aims to remove these inequalities. Access and participation, number 2. The goal is not only to enroll every child in school but also to ensure meaningful participation and retention. Number 3, flexibility and personalization. Learners have different paces and styles of learning. Therefore, the system must be flexible, student-centered. Respect for diversity, this is number 4. India's linguistic, cultural and social diversity is seen as an asset. The policy encourages mother tongue-based and multilingual education. Number 5, humanistic approach. NEP 2020 aligns education with constitutional values such as equality, fraternity, and respect for human rights. Provisions of NEP 2020 supporting inclusive education. What are the provisions that are listed here? Number 1, universal access to education. The policy ensures universal access from pre-primary to secondary education. It emphasizes 100% gross enrollment ratio in school education by 2030, strengthening of existing schools and development of alternative schooling options, special education zones in disadvantaged areas, transport and hostel facilities for students in remote regions. This ensures that children from marginalized communities, rural backgrounds, or economically weaker sections are not left behind. Early Childhood Care and Education, ECC. The policy recognizes that early interventions are critical for inclusive education. It proposes integrated and inclusive pre-primary education through Anganwadi and preschools, train teachers to identify developmental delays and provide support, inclusive curriculum for play-based activity-centered learning, and early childhood inclusion ensures that differences are accepted and supported from the beginning of learning. Number 3, foundational literacy and numeracy, FLN. NEP 2020 stresses that every child must attain foundational skills by grade 3. This is vital for inclusion as many children from the disadvantaged groups fail behind early. The National Mission on Foundational Literacy and Numeracy, Nipun Bharat, ensures inclusive and contextualized teaching materials, multilingual and activity-based approaches, special training for teachers to support children with learning difficulties. Number 4, inclusive curriculum and pedagogy. The policy advocates for a flexible, multidisciplinary and learner-centered curriculum that accommodates different learning styles and needs. So, here the key aspects include use of universal design for learning principles, emphasis on experiential and competency-based learning, integration of arts, sports, and vocational subjects for holistic development, content that reflects diverse cultures, languages, and perspective. This ensures that the curriculum is not uniform but adaptive and responsive to early learners' needs. Number 5, education for children with disabilities. NEP makes strong provisions for inclusive education of children with disabilities, in line with the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. CWDs will have the options of studying in regular schools with appropriate support or in special education if required. Teachers will receive special training to address the needs of children with hearing, visual and learning disabilities. Use of Indian Sign Language and Braille will be standardized and promoted. Assistive technologies, accessible infrastructure, learning materials will be made available. Thus, NEP envisions an inclusive and education system where no child is excluded due to disability. Gender inclusion and equity. NEP 2020 calls for a gender inclusion fund to ensure that girls and transgender students have equal access to education. It emphasizes safe and inclusive school environments, separate sanitation facilities for girls, scholarship and incentives for female students, sensitization programs to reduce gender bias. This aligns with the goal of achieving gender equality and empowerment through education. Support for socioeconomically disadvantaged group. The policy identifies including SEDG, including scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, other backward classes, minorities and economically weaker sections. Provision include special hostel scholarships and financial aid, recruitment of teachers from diverse backgrounds, use of local languages as a medium of instruction, culturally responsive curricula. These steps aim to bridge educational gaps and promote inclusivity across region and communities. Inclusive higher education. At the higher educational level, NEP 2020 emphasizes equal access, flexibility and diversity. The key provisions are multidisciplinary institutions that welcome students from all backgrounds, multiple entry and exit options for flexible learning, credit-based system to recognize prior learning, support services for differently able students in universities, promotions of open and distance learning for inclusion. Teacher preparation for inclusive education. Teachers are the backbone of inclusion. NEP 2020 highlights revised teacher education programs that integrate inclusive pedagogy, special education and psychology, continuous professional development programs for practicing teachers, recruitment of special educators for specific disabilities, use of ICT for teacher training on inclusive methods. By empowering teachers, NEP ensures that classrooms become inclusive learning spaces. Use of technology for inclusion. Digital learning can bridge gaps between when used responsibly. NEP 2020 that's why promotes development accessible digital content for learners with disabilities, assistive technologies such as screen readers, speech-to-text software and captioning, online platform like Diksha with inclusive resources, training teachers in digital pedagogy, and thus technology becomes a powerful tool for inclusion when used ethically and accessibly. Characteristics of an inclusive classroom under NEP 2020. How NEP 2020 has defined the concept of inclusive classroom. An inclusive classroom aligned with NEP 2020 can be identified by some of the characteristics. Number one, diverse group of learners. Students from varied linguistic, cultural and ability backgrounds learning together. Number two, flexible teaching methods. Teachers use differentiated instruction and activity-based learning. Number three, accessible infrastructure, ramp, tactiles, materials and digital aid supports participation for all. Number four, multilingual and culturally responsive curriculum. Learning in home language promotes understanding and inclusion. Number five, collaborative environment, peer support and teamwork replace competition. Number six, positive and safe learning atmosphere. Emotional well-being and belonging are prioritized. Continuous assessment, which is number seven. Evaluation focuses on progress, not comparison. And role of teachers in implementing NEP 2020 and inclusion. Teachers are central in translating policy into practice. Their role include facilitator of learning, guiding students through flexible and personalized methods, diagnostician, identifying learning difficulties early, collaborator, working with parents, counselor and community members, innovator, using creative strategies and technology, advocate, promoting inclusive values and challenging stereotypes. So NEP 2020 stresses continuous teacher training so that educators can effectively handle diverse classroom. Challenges in implementing inclusive education under NEP 2020. Despite strong policy intent, several challenges exist here. Number one, lack of awareness and sensitization. Teachers and administrators may still hold biases against disability or diversity. Then inadequate infrastructure. Many schools still lack RAM, accessible toilets or assistive devices. Shortage of special educators. Implementation needs trained professionals at every level. Overcrowded classrooms. Difficult to provide individual attention in overcrowded classroom. Limited parental involvement. Awareness about inclusion is often low in rural areas still. Technology divide. Digital inclusion is limited in economically weaker sections. Implementation gaps, monitoring and coordination between central and state government need strengthening. Government initiatives supporting inclusion. Several initiatives complement NEP 2020's inclusive vision. Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan 2018 integrate inclusive education under one umbrella. Nipun Bharat Mission in 2021 ensures fundamental literacy for all. PM Poshan Mid-Day Meal supports nutrition and retention of disadvantaged learners. National Digital Education Architecture NDEAR creates digital infrastructure for inclusion. Accessible India campaign promotes barriers-free access in schools and institutions, creating an inclusive school culture. For NEP 2020 succeeded, inclusion must become a school-wide philosophy. This involves leadership commitment, school heads promoting inclusive values, collaborative practices, teamwork amongst teachers and support staff, parental and community involvement, awareness program and local participation. Inclusive events refer celebrating diversity through art, culture and sports. Monitoring progress, evaluating inclusion through participation and learning outcomes. Some best practices for inclusive classroom are there. These are co-teaching models, general and special educators jointly plan lessons, buddy system, pairing students to promote peer support, assistive technology integration, using ICT to support diverse learning needs, flexible assessment methods, portfolios, oral test, project, etc. can be used. Counseling and mentoring, addressing emotional and social needs is important. So, what are the impact of NEP 2020 on inclusive education? NEP 2020 has redefined inclusion as a core element of educational reform, not as a separate concern. Its impact include broader understanding of inclusion beyond disability, policy coherence between school, higher and teacher education, strengthen accountability for equitable outcomes, promotion of empathy, collaboration and diversity as educational values. If implemented effectively, NEP 2020 can transform India's education system into one that is fair, flexible and inclusive for every learner. Now, some recommendation I'd like to add here for effective implementation. First, comprehensive training, regular workshop and models on inclusive pedagogy should be arranged by the concerned authority. Strengthening infrastructure, barriers-free access and inclusive resources should be available. Community participation, awareness drive to change social attitude should be arranged. Monitoring mechanisms, evaluation of inclusion indicators in schools should be there. Use of technology, accessible digital platforms and content should be ready. Interministerial coordination, collaboration between education, social justice and disability ministries is important. Research and innovation, promoting evidence-based practices in inclusion is very, very important here. So, in the end, it can be said that the National Education Policy 2020 envisions an education system rooted in equity, empathy, and excellence. Its commitment to inclusive classroom represents a moral and constitutional duty to ensure that every child, regardless of differences, has an equal right to learn and thrive. An inclusive classroom under framework of NEP 2020 is not merely a physical space. It is a mindset that celebrates diversity, encourages participation, and fosters mutual respect. It requires trained teachers, accessible infrastructure, flexible curricula, and community collaboration. Inclusion is not just about accommodating a few, it's about reimagining education for all. When inclusion becomes the foundation of teaching and learning, the vision of NEP 2020 to build a just, human, and knowledge-based society will truly be realized. Thank you.